My guest today is the contagiously positive Lindsey Cormack, PhD professor at Stevens University in political science. Her new book, How to Raise a Citizen and Why It's Up to You to Do It, inspires younger generations to realize government can be a tool of change for them, but they need to know how and where to engage.
I had that time with her. I never would have seen her after work.
What's that called? Serendipity?
It was, it was.
That's what it is.
And I actually used that word when I was describing it later that night. I was like, NYC has these serendipitous things that are more possible because all the people are next to each other.
Yeah.
Like in Kansas, it's not like, hey, you're 20 minutes away. Let's drive over here.
Because everybody has to drive, right?
Yeah.
And every drive is like 20 minutes.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, so you've been here 17 years. Were you in academia when you were in Kansas? Did your career start there, or it started when you...
I went to the University of Kansas.
Yeah.
So I was an undergrad.
Okay.
And then I came out to D.C. for a year. And then I moved here to go to NYU.
Oh, got it.
So I got my PhD at NYU.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What was your undergrad work in?
American politics was my major, and then my minor was African and African American studies,
Got it.
which I think the way that I picked it is not the way that most of my students do stuff. Most of my students are very career oriented, where they're like, I want to be this. So like, I
mean
take
your
the
students
classes
today?
Today.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole time I've been there, they like know what they want to do or have some idea, and so
Right.
they pick a major so they can like learn that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was like, what do I not know a lot about that these people can teach me? And so that's how I ended up in my things. Like, my parents aren't political.
Right.
I wasn't raised in like a house that had conversations around that. Kansas was like 94% white when I was there.
Yeah,
so I was just like, well, I don't know anything about these people, so why don't I learn something at school?
That's pretty cool.
I thought it was totally normal, but it's not, apparently.
So you're in Kansas, brothers, sisters?
I have two younger brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like? So you say your parents weren't political. What was the vibe in the house? What was the interest? What was the...
They're sports oriented.
Okay.
Like Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City Royals, KU Jayhawks, that sort of stuff.
What kind of work did they do?
My dad was a food salesman.
Yeah.
And so he was actually, for my younger part of childhood, he was gone a lot because the way that it would work is he would be in his car for like 2 weeks at a time on the road, like selling flour and cereal and whatever. And then he'd come back for 4 days. And so that's like, it was like 2 weeks away, 4 days home. And it was before, you weren't calling and checking in. And it seems unimaginable for me now thinking about how that had to be for my mom as a parent. Like to have 3 kids for 14 days at a stretch.
Right.
I think that sounds really hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did your mom, what did she do?
She was staying at home, but she was always doing something. Like she was a seamstress.
Oh, really?
We raised puppies and sold puppies for a while. She had a real estate time. She was like selling jewelry. It was like she was always trying to like do something.
Oh, that's super industrious.
Very industrious.
That's awesome.
And really varied.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I would have seen birth if I didn't have a mom who was raising puppies, like
I see.
when are you exposed to animal births?
But I feel like that's what's great about, I had this idea, this could be totally wrong, living out in a place like Kansas, the things you get exposed to, I feel like are sort of more the mysteries of nature. Just because you're out in land and like you see stuff. I mean...
Yeah, there are more animals. There's many more animals.
Yeah. Even like, I don't know, connection to tree. I don't know. I feel like you get more of a connection to something natural. Is that wrong?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
The last 3 summers I've spent up in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I like it so much there is because it's Kansas for me. It's like you can see the entire horizon. You can see a weather pattern rolling in.
Yeah.
You can experience a thunderstorm. And I didn't realize you don't really do that in New York.
Yeah.
Like we have rain.
Right.
But
we got seasons, but you don't see it rolling in.
You don't really see it. Yeah. It's very hard at any one point to look up and see a horizon.
Yeah.
And I live on a 3rd floor, so like I'm never seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's true. I've been cross country a couple of times, and there is that amazing point where you sort of see the weather coming in from miles away. And that's a view you don't have.
And that's a Kansas thing that I thought, I don't know, I took it for granted. And I was here for like 10 years before I realized, I was like, oh, you really miss that. Like that's a nice thing.
Do you miss Kansas and the families there? Or no, you're happy here. You love New York. You love New York?
I do love New York.
Yeah.
I don't miss Kansas.
Right.
There are parts of that life that are easier. And my daughter sees that when we go visit her cousins. Like, there's like, get in the car and go to horseback riding lessons, or get in the car and go wherever. And it's like, easy.
Easier.
That's
right.
Yes.
That's right.
And they have outdoor space. And that's
you
nice.
mentioned upstate. I love that area too. And I came to the Epiphany recently. I love the beach. I sort of grew up going to the beach. But my wife and I love going upstate, and one of my things I love is trees and waterfall. Like,
Okay.
I feel like very connected. I love standing under waterfalls, so I love taking waterfall hikes. But I came to the epiphany recently, or at least I accepted that I love mountains and water more than the beach. Like, that's my nature connection, which you get tons of in upstate. It's amazing, amazing area. Okay, so then you came to Kansas to do your PhD in NYU. In the same field at that point? Like,
I did American government.
American government.
And it was a wonderful time to do it because at that time, I started in like 2008, and everyone at that time was still post 9/11, like wanted to get into like international studies or comparative studies because like the sexy things were like terrorism and that sort of stuff. And out of the 20 people who came in, I was the only one who studied American politics. So I had like all the faculty to myself. I was it was wonderful. Cool. It was really good.
And did you grow up loving like American history and origin stuff, or no? It was not related to that at all. So where did that bug come from?
I'm not sure where it came from, but I do think like there's something that's just like hopeful and changey in American politics that's really exciting to me. Like, I think the story is often relayed to children that like there was a founding, it's founded, the end. And I have always sort of thought of it as like this constant finding. It's like, no, guys, we get to keep creating it. Like, we get to do this.
Yeah.
And I think for women, at least in my lifetime and seeing like my mom and her mom, stuff has really gotten better. Like in terms of what they're able to do, the freedom of choice they have in like banking or healthcare or marriage or not marriage.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this actually, it's a good system. I like the changes that are possible in American politics.
It's so funny because your work is very optimistic. I think you have an optimistic tone. I definitely want to get into that. And not to keep going back to this, but I wonder if it is coming from Kansas. Like, I don't know. Like, if you were born and raised here, it might be hard to see the optimism. So it's almost, am I off, or you think there's something to that?
I think I think something that Kansas does to people, like when we say Midwest nice.
Yeah.
I think part of it is.
That's what I'm trying to say,
well,
right?
I think that's a real thing. At least I hear that often.
Right.
I think part of it is natural disasters. I think if you have to do sheltering because a tornado might take your house out and kill your family multiple times with other people, you develop this sort of like, aren't you so happy we're alive? Isn't this great?
Yeah.
And we don't really have that same sort of natural disaster profile here.
Right.
There's like other things that are threatening. But I don't know, the like us versus the weather and like how lucky are we that it didn't hit us or it passed or whatever. I think that does something.
I like that.
I do. I think it's part of
That's
it.
interesting. Was there, in the natural disasters, was there any sort of government interaction that was positive in getting those things back on, either FEMA or, you know what I mean? Was there something they were like, oh, actually really like the way, I'll tell you why it comes up. I recently took a tour of some national parks with my kids and wife in the beginning of May. Never done that before, but I was so impressed with the National Park Service and the kids who work there. I call them kids, but teens to 20, passionate about what they do. It's run really well. They love it. And I thought about our upcoming conversation. I thought about your work, and I was like, it's this kind of thing. I'm like, you know what? It could be really cool. Things could be done really well. There is this passionate group of people in this one particular niche. So I wonder, was there like a positive government interaction you had and maybe seeing it respond to disasters? You're like, you know what? It actually works really well in a way.
I didn't experience a natural disaster. Okay. There was never a tornado that like hit my town in a problematic way. But I do, and we don't really have national parks in Kansas. I don't think we have any. But I do think, you know how sometimes we think government sucks?
Yeah.
I think national parks are like government does not suck because like that is something that's conceived of in the idea that like we can make this better for everyone. The Civilian Conservation Corps, I think, is like the thing that FDR puts together to say like, hey, let's blaze some trails. Hey, let's make some lean-tos so people can stay there. Hey, let's farm this in a way that there's like different trees so it doesn't befall forest fires or erosion. Like I think there's a lot of stuff that like points to good government, but we don't see it necessarily as government. The only sort of interaction I had with the government was I had an internship when I was in high school with the city of Overland Park because my neighbor, the dad there was like an administrator in something, and I like really, really wanted to do so I wanted to be like a lawyer is what I thought. And so he got me some internship, and all I was doing was filing like cases. Like it was cases that the city was processing, and it was nothing that was a big deal. But I was just like sitting in rooms like alphabetizing. But they were like, you can read some of these if you want. And so I'd like sit and read the files and like learn a little bit. That was positive, I guess.
So there's a streak to you that seems to answer to something, like taking the African American studies, like what can I learn? There's a different way of looking at things. Was that from a young age? Your siblings have the same things that come from your parents? Was that just sort of a DNA approach?
My siblings are so very different. Yeah, they really are. Okay. My second brother, he didn't really do the college pathway. He now is more successful than any of us because he, had a different trajectory that was really his calling. And then my younger one, he has like found a life that he really likes, but it is not, I think, rooted in like a higher thing. He's just like wants to do a life that he likes. He loves to play video games. He found a job that affords him enough time to play video games. And so he's like thrilled that that's what he does. Yeah, that's like, And he found a wife who also wants to play video games. Yeah. And I was like, you guys like
co-gamers?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I don't know how common that is. It might be, but that's pretty cool.
I don't know. They got married like 10 years ago, I think now. And at their wedding, one of my brothers, two of his groomsmen, he'd never met in person, but he had gamed with them online for like a decade. And they flew in because I guess in a lot of men's social circles, you talk to people on headsets while you're gaming. That's like not something I've ever done.
Right. I missed that gaming phase, but I'm actually sort of fascinated by one of actually ties into some of your work on community, but that community is so tight.
They can be.
The gaming community.
Yeah, they really can be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that was just, again, this sort of thinking outside the box, just that's your character a little bit.
I don't think it's necessarily outside of the box. Okay. I don't think of myself as like an incredibly creative thinker. I think when I conceptualize how I have oriented myself to American politics or American government, I think the first thing that I did was this DC inbox thing, and I don't know if that like crossed your radar at all.
Yeah, with the newsletters. You catalog the newsletters from,
And I sort of saw that as, we should have this. These are taxpayer-created things, and when the Library of Congress wasn't doing it, I was like, well, by God, as a citizen of this country, I'll do it. And so there's something about me that's sort of just like, I guess I'll do this. Like,
so it's a database of all the newsletters the Congress people put out.
In their official capacity,
In their official capacity. And does everybody have to do that?
They don't have to.
Okay.
But it's like a free incumbent perk. They get $1 million plus to do that.
They get paid to do that?
Well, it's called a member's representational allowance. Okay. So they get a budget line item to create that sort of content. Or it can also be things they mail out or host teletown halls or whatever, but it's like in that bucket of money. Most of them do it. Over 90% of them do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you catalog that so people not aware of it can go and look at the stuff.
You can go see like who's saying what. You can see what terms are trending over time. I love it because I learned so much.
Yeah.
Like right now, the word that is most ascendant in Democratic e-newsletters is billionaire. For like 15 years, they didn't say billionaire, didn't say billionaire, didn't say billionaire. Right now, it's all like billionaire.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So as you're coming to New York, when was it becoming clear political dialogue, how to understand the system better, how to have conversations with your kids, when we'll get to the book? When is it becoming clear that was what you were interested in, or is that developed over?
It's totally developed.
Yeah.
Totally developed. Because the way sort of the tenure system is set up, is like you have to make a mark in some way, and then they'll tenure you, and then you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And so for me, I had this idea of this book because I work with students who are really bright. Like the Stevens students, their engineering brains are like systematizers and pattern recognizers and problem solvers, but they are so ill-equipped when it comes to thinking about the government, not through any fault of their own, but because they went through school systems that largely didn't teach them about it.
Right.
And so as a professor, I like sort of see this and like, like we have a pretest, like who knows what? Oh, no one knows anything. That's sad.
So actual facts about the government, the way it runs.
Oh yeah, they don't. No.
God, okay.
And they're really smart. They're like some of the brightest students that exist in the country.
Yeah.
And they don't know this stuff. And part of it is, when you lean into a STEM education or if you have a magnet school that really focuses on these things, civics, government stuff, it gets short shrift.
Yeah.
And so it's not their fault that they don't know it. But the thing that was like the kicker for me is they had me be like the person who was running our voter registration drives and our like get out the vote stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to do it because I had like enough to do, but
Yeah.
no one else was raising their hand or agreeing to do it, so I said I would. And so we organized this thing called Ducks to the Polls because our mascot is a duck. And we like take our little ducks to the polls, they vote, and then we have an ice cream party. We don't care how they vote, whatever, eat ice cream, it's fun. But every year we do it, there are multiple students who are turned away because they're either not registered or they're not registered in that county and they didn't know it. And seeing that was really heartbreaking because they like think like, I'm an adult, I'm going to do a grown-up thing, or I'm going to do a good thing for the country, or I'm going to make a choice. And then they're turned away and they're embarrassed and they're crestfallen. And then they get a little jaded, they get a little mad. And I was like, ooh, I don't like this. And like, that's not their fault. That's our fault. That's like the collective adults' fault that we didn't prepare them for this.
That they know what the setup is and what to file and what to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that, I mean, how would they? There's not like a button that turns on that's like, oh, now you know everything about the government. So when I started the project of the book, I had 6 Stevens research assistants with me. And we thought we were going to write a book on like, here's the states that are doing a better job of creating civically oriented 18-year-olds who know how to like hit the ground running. And what like emerged in that process, I had them for about a year, was no state is doing it that well. It's really hard to get it done in schools. And so we had to think about like another way in. And so that's when it became a parenting book. This was coincident with sort of another part of my life where I was running a little business teaching new moms fitness.
Yeah.
It was called Fit Pod, and it was like new moms who haven't gone back to work yet, who are like a little sad, don't have any friends, have this new baby. We all would get together and they would work out with their baby as the weight. It was like, this is the functional fitness you need to develop. And so I was like doing more in the parenting space. And I was like, I think that might be the route. I think that's where it has to come from. Because schools are really hard. State politics is really hard to change. Family life is, everyone can change their own family life.
Right. And so you start on this book and then when did that change? You said, okay, now it's going to be a parenting book about how to talk to kids about politics. Well, it's called, first of all, it's called How to Raise a Citizen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's how to raise a citizen and why it's up to you to do it.
Yes.
And the why it's up to you to do it is something that my daughter like put in. She was like, no, it's not just how, it's why you have to. And I was like, oh, that's a good
insight.
I'm glad you added that.
Are these conversations you have with your daughter?
All the time. All the time.
On principle, or that came up naturally because it's what you were interested in, or like you feel like you have to do it because there's a responsibility to? So she's the guinea pig on that.
It doesn't feel like, we don't sit down and, I don't lecture her. I don't say like, you need to know this. I do bring her to things. I do let her meet people. Like she's met my member of Congress, my former one, and my new one. She will always meet whoever is like my assembly district member. Any opportunity I have to have her see who those people are, I want her to see that because I want her to have a sense that these are people, not like nameless, faceless. I don't know who's doing these things. Like, no, these are just people. So she can see they are humans who are like trying hard. They're also flawed. And sometimes she's impressed. Most often she's not, which is like maybe a teenager orientation to things.
You mean she's not impressed with what they say or
how they carry themselves? Like, oh, it's just that, or that's who does that? Yeah, just someone who raised their hand a few years ago and people voted for him.
Do you think, I mean, this is interesting and again, this could be, I tend to take a hopeful view of American history. Like I love it, you know, I love visiting Philly. I think there's a lot of inspiring stuff there. There's a sense that a politician used to carry themselves better in general. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it's funny that she says like, oh, it's just a person, where at least when you read the stories of some of these people, you get a larger than life feel. Like there was a little sense of destiny in what they were doing.
Yes.
Yes, is that what you see as well or no?
I agree that is like sort of a historical read on a lot of the figures that we think, not knowing how they were contemporaneously. I don't know if that's how it would have read to 13-year-olds of the time.
Right.
I think she has seen a variety of politicians. She has one on the Upper East Side who like really impresses her. His name's Alex Borez.
Okay.
He is a assemblyman in Albany, and he was a data scientist, and he's like one of the first data scientists in the State House, and she finds him to be just like so smart. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. He like came to their school and did something. I was like, oh. But she has other people who come to the school and she feels like they talk down to them a little bit.
Right.
Like, okay,
I'm sure that's
yeah. She doesn't like that.
I wonder, it's funny, I wonder if there's certainly a rise in the popularity or belief in data-driven decisions. So I wonder if he's like it's speaking to a younger generation. In the sense
Maybe.
of
he understands some of the things that his colleagues don't.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's what like lights her up, but she did find him to be persuasive.
Remember like the Zuckerberg hearings where you're like, these people do not even know the question to ask.
Yeah. So I remember when they were like, well, but I've been studying how members of Congress use computers for a very long time, since like 2009. Yeah. And so when everyone was like, they don't know these questions, and I was like, they don't know how to turn on computers. Like some of them think like it's a remote, like a TV at the time. So like I wasn't like shocked. I also wasn't terribly annoyed though, because that's not really what the job is asked of them. Like in some ways, the idea that a politician is going to know every bit of everything that they're ever going to be in a congressional committee hearing for is not possible.
Right.
Yeah. I think our standards are a little bit strange. I think we expect them to be like experts in too much. I think we should expect a lot of our politicians, but they're not going to know everything. Okay,
so let's and I want to get to the book, but this is fascinating. I think there's something to what you're saying. So, right, these are people, they've raised their hand and stepped up. You can attribute certain things to that, but let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt and say people are looking to serve, and these are the people that have raised their hands to do that. What is the expectation, right? They're not going to know everything. What is the standard we should have of them?
I mean, for myself, the way I think about it is I want to try hard.
Yeah.
I want someone who is trying. They might not try to do the same things that I would do. They might not think a version of a good life is the same version that I think is good, but I respect people who try hard to implement things.
Yeah.
I don't think like the showman style of politician is that persuasive to me. And one of the best examples that I used to have in class in Congress was Matt Gaetz. Yeah. Matt Gaetz was like terribly good at showmanship, and he was really good at like getting attention. He was reelected with like high margins. But when it comes down to it, I don't believe he passed a piece of legislation. He introduced plenty, but I think it was because he didn't understand, or he did understand and didn't care to do it, that like in order to pass something in a collective body, you have to make friends, let them agree with you or agree with them sometimes, and come together to do something as a unit. And so you have to be a tryhard in the situation you're in a legislature. That's like community building. It's consensus building. It's compromise. Yeah. So I want people who understand that. Some people are better as executives, and some people are better as legislators.
Right.
And I want them to just try at what they're doing.
Do you feel, I think some of the jadedness from young people towards the government is that they're not trying, right? How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I think I talk to a lot of students who are really jaded, and they're like so young, and it frustrates me, but I talk to a variety of ages and people, that like permeating sense of like, all the politicians are awful, or they're all systems rigged, everyone's out for themselves. I think that's like, well, in the first place, for most local and state stuff, it's absolutely not true.
Okay.
Because most of those people are essentially volunteers. They're paid little, if at all. Yeah. And so like for those people, they are not like out for themselves or like really getting a lot of kickbacks from it. Federal politicians you can have bigger claims against, but so I don't think that the like jaded sense of everyone who's in politics is bad is true.
That's probably true, especially as you're starting out. I'm running for city council, and then I'm running like...
No, absolutely. Right. My daughter, so the way she thinks about it is she's like, the more she knows about state and local politicians, she's like, these are like the kids who were on yearbook. She's like, these are the kids who just want to like do a little bit extra. And I was like, it does feel like that sometimes. Right. But I don't think we want to feel jaded. I'm like really a little bit sad about the way politics feels. Like who wants to go through life thinking like, this is an awful place and nothing ever gets better? It's like, well, they do get better, but I don't think that narrative really serves us.
Yeah. Do you think that is I mean, listen, I'm honest. I certainly feel that way. Like, I certainly feel government is the last place I'm going to turn to solve something, right?
Well, small business owner.
I mean, that's
different run there, yeah.
But in general, I mean, what comes across is from the public dialogue, right? And this is the most obvious. It's so vitriol, it's so partisan, it's so divided. Like, just from a personal reaction, it's like, that can't possibly be how things are going to get done. But I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I tend to believe in the best of people, right? So I agree. In the halls of Congress, somebody in their office, like, I believe they're sitting there trying to do something good. I do believe that. So is it a storytelling problem? Is it a transparency problem? Is like, as a government, how do I get to see the behind the scenes footage where, you know, I'm trying?
Yeah. I think at the federal level, it's a really hard ask because I don't think we're going to get a behind the scenes that is pleasing to most of us. I think in the state and local level, if you like pull those curtains back, there's a lot of successes or a lot of things that like look really good. Not everything, of course, but I'll give you an example from New York City. So I'm on my community board, which is like the smallest local form of government, right? And last night we were doing liquor licenses and sidewalk cafes and roadway cafes. And there's a Ralph Lauren sidewalk cafe up on the Upper East Side that generates a lot of tourism.
It's the shop on the corner?
Yes, it's on the corner on Madison.
They put a roadway cafe?
No, sidewalk cafe. And, you know, there's, you know, it's people come there for Instagram, whatever, like there's a lot of stuff. But there was a constituent who was like, I believe the renderings that they have submitted to you are incorrectly sized. Like he didn't think it was the appropriate scale. He had a problem with like a tree bed versus a tree canopy, whatever. And so we as the body have to like weigh these things. Like I think generally are pro businesses in New York City in the sense that we understand they're a lifeblood and we need especially the small unique ones versus like the Targets and the Taco Bells. But we also like don't want people who live there to have to like navigate pathways that are too small or don't allow for strollers or mobility devices or whatever. And so we really had to grapple with this. And we had people on both sides. And it was something where the way that we ended up kind of coming down on this is we had a resolution to conditionally approve their sidewalk cafe, but then we deputized 2 people of the community board who committed in between now and our next meeting to going out there themselves, taking measurements themselves and reporting back as to the accuracy of this applicant or not.
Wow. Okay.
And that is volunteer work.
Right.
None of these people are paid. None of these people are like professional surveyors, but that's like the way that this stuff happens at the local level. And I think those are successes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The community board is, we talked for hours about that. I've had, you actually find your community board is pro-business?
In the Upper East Side, I do. Certainly.
That's
certainly.
Good, yeah. Because I have outdoor seating. This has been like a 10-year, I've had this for about 10 years, our sidewalk seating, but I had such a hard time when we first got started. But let's say it turns out they did submit the wrong thing. In theory, then what happens?
Then the board will have a revised resolution. It will then, if we say we disapprove this, it kicks off a process within the Department of Transportation. Like if the community board says we disapprove, the DOT has to do their own hearing. If we say approve, the DOT mostly says like, okay, sounds good. And so it is sort of like, it can be smooth sailing if you like show up, say what you're going to say, and it's fine. And for probably 95% of ours, that's what it is. Very few of ours have any sorts of hiccups. But when we do, that's like where the grappling happens. That's where the governing happens or when the communitying happens. So I like that.
Do you find reasonable conversations on the community board? Like, do you find things get resolved in a community type of way?
I do. Yes.
Okay, that's
on the
good.
Upper East,
That's
the big challenges that we've had is sidewalk roadway cafes. Those have been hard. The cannabis licensing rollout, I've been on the community board for 3 years. I think that was one of like the biggest state and city policy failures that I've had opportunity to be a part of and to see.
Messy.
It was, and it was something where I'm sure it was similar down here. There was like a lot of unlicensed cannabis shops everywhere. And so in my non-community board capacity, in my like Lindsey the Citizen capacity, I started going to them and I would like take the owners out to lunch and I'd be like, what's happening here? Like, what are we doing here? And what I heard from them was essentially someone's going to make money here. This is a gray zone. It's not being enforced. Might as well be me. And it wasn't like criminal enterprises. It was like guys from California, guys from Massachusetts who like understood sort of like the marijuana market. And so they were opening these places up. In the Upper East Side, we don't really have any unlicensed cannabis places anymore. We have 6 licensed ones. But there was a period of time where it was everywhere. Like every empty bodega, every railroad, whatever, was going to be an unlicensed cannabis place. And we don't have that anymore. And part of that was, I think, the work that we done on community board was because that sort of pressure rolls up and it rolled up to like our assembly person and our city council person. And eventually the mayor gets involved and we change policies around this. But it takes people being on it, tracking it, reporting it, understanding it. And I liked being a part of that, even though I thought it was a huge failure.
Do you, in your work in general, do you focus on all levels of state government or, I mean, all levels of government, federal and state, you're mostly Federal?
Yeah, mostly federal.
Okay.
Like my research is the first 15 years of academia for me was the Congress at the federal level, just because that's the communications data I was looking at. That was what was interesting to me. When I started getting involved in local politics, I sort of it was such a good marrying of like the theoretical that you learn from the federal understanding to the actual practical of what it is to do this work. Which is, it's like not that hard. You just have to care and have a few hours for it. And I find myself now teaching more state and local politics to my students because it's certainly not what they're getting in K through 12.
Yeah.
Like they barely touch the federal level.
Yeah.
But they don't know anything about in New Jersey what the Jersey politics look like, or even Hoboken, where as a college campus in a small town, they could actually be really pivotal. Like their voting block really matters. We have at-large city council members, so they can like really sway these things if only they cared enough to harness their power, they knew enough to register. And so I find myself leaning into that, especially on election years when I'm teaching.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you talk about, well, there's a couple things I want to ask you about. The two programs you run at Stevens, because you have this lab as well you do.
The diplomacy lab.
The diplomacy lab. And then I certainly want to get into sort of the problems the book is addressing and some of the solutions. But just to come back to this point, it seems like you talk a lot about people just aren't being taught civics, like classic civics, which I think is a huge point. I mean, even just, when my kid was at 234, they tore the building. They'd see this is what this, like the structure I'm in and how this feeds that. Here's the plumbing, here's the city that goes, there's a whole, and especially in a place like New York, just to know how it works. Like when I see people repairing the water main pipes, I'm like, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. There's a guy who knows how to do that, who's making sure everybody in this has water. That's insane. There's a level of appreciation. In your research, where did that trend stop? Like why did people stop becoming interested? Why people felt it wasn't needed? What took its place? How did that happen?
Yeah, so the biggest culprit is probably the focus on STEM. It probably is. It's like 1940s, 1950s, space race. We really kick up STEM. And if you look at hours of enrollment or minutes in the classroom, government or civics takes the biggest dive. And it's not just that, that's the only thing that goes down. There's arts and there's history that go down as well, but it goes down the most precipitously and the greatest number of minutes are removed.
That's the 40s or 50s, you said?
In the 40s and 50s, when sort of this science, technology, engineering, math, we don't call it STEM at that time, but as that sort of becomes more important, we crowd out the curriculum. Coincident with that, we start to really focus on standardized testing. So we have the SAT before we have the ACT, but the SAT has never had any component about government, civics, social studies, none of that. Right. The ACT did until 1987, and then in order to be more competitive with the SAT, it got rid of its social studies component. So now we operate in this world where the single marker of like achievement or the likelihood that you're going to get into a good school is devoid of any content on social studies or government. Teachers know that, schools know that, and though no one wants to admit like teaching to the test, if it's not tested, it's not taught. And that's something we interviewed teachers in 47 states for this book. That's something we heard everywhere. And so if you know that you have only X many hours in the day and X many days in the year, and the end goal is get these kids a high score on the SAT or the ACT,
you're not going to focus on something that
it's not going to be the stuff that's not tested. And that's not just, for the students' interests. Schools get better funding if they do better on these tests. They get blue ribbon designation. The teachers get more recognition. So there's all these sort of incentives. It's not to say that the teachers don't want to teach it. It's not to say that they're not capable. We don't have enough qualified social studies teachers. But even the ones who are find themselves in like a curricular crunch where there's other things that just are perceived as more important because for the tests that are going to happen, they are more important. They are the things that they have to know, or they're not going to get the scores that help everyone.
Right. So, okay. So it's circular or whatever. Circular problem feeds on itself. Yeah. Interesting. Just sort of a weird side note. The immigration exam probably has more questions on structure of government than some of these school tests, right?
Yeah, so a lot of states, though, have started to make this move where they're taking the immigration and naturalization exam as their exam, and they'll do it in the same way we sort of administer that.
Schools are taking that on.
Yeah, like states are saying the way that we're going to test civics is we're going to give them these things. There's pros to that. I think there's a lot of cons to that because while it's good to have like sort of that look at what some static notion of American setup is or American history is, that sort of takes the student out of the actor spot and makes them sort of like a passive sort of like assessor versus like understanding action civics. Like the idea that like if you have a problem in your community, there is someone that you can call or there is a route that you can make available to yourself, whether that's like making art for change or chalking up a sidewalk saying like, you know, here's the rights that aren't being observed right here, whatever. And so it's fine that we have more testing that look like that. I don't think it gets us out of this problem.
Right. Right. So that's interesting. So you're saying that part of your work is not only to understand what's happening, but to figure out how to use the system.
Oh, absolutely.
Better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because the most beautiful thing about living in a democracy like America is that you get to change the outcomes.
Yeah.
It's so great to be here, but we don't realize it if we think like someone else is doing politics and we're just like passengers on this politics ship instead of realizing we're the crew. Yeah. Like if you don't like where the boat's going, you have to learn how to steer it. And a lot of times we just don't learn it, not because we're not necessarily interested, but because no one's teaching us.
Yeah.
And the parents of today were also sort of left out. Like they're already on that decline in terms of like the hours in the classroom. I didn't get civics
growing up. I mean, I have an interest in it.
Yeah.
So it's in there, but I mean, do they still teach how a bill becomes a law in school? Like that basic stuff? Is that still there?
In New York City, we're very lucky. We have a Civics for All curriculum, which means in K through 12, you will have some civics.
Yeah.
Full stop. We have civic weeks in March. So in March, there's a week where like the politicians are going to come through and they're going to like do everything. But we don't have what people your age and my age will say like, remember, I'm just a bill? And I'm like, yes, I remember I'm just a bill. That little song. That was a benefit to that generation that this generation doesn't have. They don't have that catchy things.
Wow.
So yeah. And it really depends on what state you're in. Some states really don't do that much at all. New York City does an awful lot, but it's still probably not enough. Do
you find New York City's an outlier? Like, does San Francisco do it as opposed to Kansas? Like, do you find geography in the country matters?
Geography does matter. The more proximate you are to D.C., like Virginia and Maryland, they do stuff pretty well. Some of the states that sort of surprise people, at least on the East Coast, is that there are some red or conservative or more Republican-oriented states that have really prioritized civics. And I actually think from a state competitive standpoint, it makes sense to have your population be the smartest about this. You will have politicians who are elected who are better at getting their will. So you like want to have a population that understands government if you want politicians who understand it. If you want the federal government to bend your way, it's in your benefit.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you find between red and blue states there is a trend one way or another or no?
No. So when you ask people like basic questions about like how long do people serve on the Supreme Court or what's a First Amendment right? If you ask a Democratic audience, like who do you think gets more of it right? They'll say themselves. If you ask a Republican audience, they'll say themselves. And the answer is it's actually about the same.
Yeah.
There are states that do things better or worse than others. Colorado does stuff pretty well. And it usually just takes someone, because it's a political decision on what we're going to teach, it takes someone having some sort of campaign through schools that says, like, we need to do more of this. Or like in Rhode Island, the students thought that they weren't being prepared to live as competent citizens in their state, so they sued their Department of Education to say, you owe us a more rigorous understanding of government. And I think that's still working its way through the courts, but every step has sort of come down on the side of the students of like, yes, if you want them to be functioning citizens of the place that they live, you have to teach them the rules. It's not fair to like set them loose and they don't know what's happening.
That's interesting. That's really cool. That's sort of a conspiracy thing. Only now that you're talking about it, there probably is a little protectionism, right? In every field, there's protectionism, right?
Like gatekeeping of the information?
Yeah. I mean, not that maybe it is conscious or unconscious, but they're almost a little of like, nobody else can do this. Whereas you sort of want the citizenry to do it, right? I mean, forefathers, all that, right? They were citizens. They did that, then they went back to farming. Nobody wanted to do it. They wanted to get back to the farm as soon as they could, right? But now it's a career, right? I wonder if that plays into a little bit of, maybe we don't want the information out there as much. I don't know.
No, I hear that too. I hear that where they're like, well, they don't want people to know it because then they're going to be able to change things.
By the way, I'm much more a positive person than I'm coming across as, but I'm glad I get to ask somebody.
Got to go through it. Yeah. I mean, I hear that.
Right.
My sense of most state government is no one is that ill-intentioned that they're like, make sure they all stay dumb. It usually is like a resources crunch where it's like, if we want our students to do well, we have to focus on these other things. Doing well in a government stuff that's not ever tested is like a hard ask. And it's not like, let's keep them out, don't teach them the terminology.
It's resources,
It is mostly resources.
I often wonder, just on sort of the federal level, I mean, if people could just understand there are limited resources. List the top 3 things we should be focusing on. I feel like if people were reasonable, it would clear a lot of the debate. Like, there's a bank account. I can only buy so much stuff, right? What are the top 3 things that we can all get on board about?
I think it sounds really hard to get people to agree to that.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I think I often think it like a presidential debate, and maybe they have done. They should ask the person, why do you think the other person would be a good president? I think there's ways to shift the debate where it becomes less emotional in a way and more, I mean, in the end of the day, and I'm curious what you think about this, there's a very pragmatic aspect to the government. And sometimes I feel like people put expectations on the government that they will never achieve because that's not the function of it, right? And maybe that's sort of a political ideology as well. But getting back to the resources, I mean, there's only so much we can do. People, right?
Yes, there are. And in terms of education, most of those funds are state level, not federal.
Right, interesting,
And so when we ask, like, I wish the federal government would do this, that, or why isn't the Department of Education making schools better? In a lot of ways, they are like money distributing organizations, but they're not curricular development organizations. Like the DOE isn't saying teach this, not that. And so putting that at the hands of the federal government, that blame doesn't make sense to me. That's state level decisions.
Do you think the federal government should mandate like a civics thing? Should there be like a Common Core government? I mean, why not, right? If it's going to come from anywhere, the government should be like, you should understand what we do. Right?
So with this new administration, with the Donald Trump administration, we have like a lot of education funding cuts. And plenty of my friends and my colleagues, are rightfully worried about that because it's their livelihood, and I get that. But on the flip side, you could have had a administration that says, you know what, we're going to mandate patriotic education, and here's how it's going to go. I actually wouldn't probably have hated that. Some states have started to say, we are mandating more semesters of civics or more hours in the classroom on that. And some people are pushing back because they're like, oh, they're going to teach, a slighted version of history where it only it says their sides are the good guys and everyone else is losers. I actually think there's not a downside, though. The more government time, the more civics time you have with students, the more they can figure out. If you give them a slanted version of history, every version is, the more exposure they have, the better they'll be able to assessing what's true, not true, less true, whatever. And so I'm like all for more civics. If it had to come from top down, I wouldn't hate it.
No, I agree. And I think I was talking to somebody recently whose work is to get people to appreciate that while, yes, there is sort of you did this, you put yourself by your bootstraps, you got it done, a lot of things go into that other than your own effort.
Yes. Streets, clean water.
Exactly. And so Internet. I think there's a level, and we were talking about, though, that the power of that is just the ability to reflect on the ecosystem we live in. So why shouldn't that come from? I mean, that's the kind of thing that should come from the government. Like, reflect on how we are as a unit. So much is a divided sort of us and them thing. One thing should come through is like, okay, but let's consider how we all are part of it.
Yeah, so and how there's benefits to having like nice air to breathe, clean water to drink, safe food, good medicine. All these things are like these quiet benefits that we don't give. Again, going back to this, like, does government suck? No, not always. And oftentimes the way that it doesn't suck, we just don't realize it.
Yeah, it's true. Like the national parks thing, Do you feel this has just occurred to me, do you feel you're a minority voice of government positivity when you look at other people in your field? Like, do you feel it skews negative?
Not in my field. It depends on how we categorize my field. If it's like the civics space.
I would say political thought. Let's say the broad spectrum of political thought. Maybe that's not the right categorization.
No. So if it's like civics stuff, like younger K through 12 stuff, I actually think all those people are really positive for the most part. Not everyone, but very positive, very hopeful. Like, we can do this, we can teach more, whatever. Academia,
like
or
university level.
yeah, university level, I think, is generally more negative, but
Right.
part of that is the questions that they're being asked to pursue. Like the pursuit of an academic career means you have to like, criticize something or figure out something new or
You gotta
propose
create
a
a
theory.
problem.
You have to, yes, you have to like find a problem to answer or
Right.
something. And so it's not something that incentivizes sort of that like optimistic, positive look. I think in K through 12, it's a very different thing.
Interesting. Okay, let's get to the book.
Okay.
Because this is, as we were talking about, for anybody to write a book is a huge deal. So how to raise a citizen and why you should do it.
Why it's up to you to
Why
do
it's
it.
up to you to do it.
Yeah.
So what are, a lot of the big themes you address, people aren't turning out, right? Why is that? You sort of debunk some of those myths. People are shying away from political conversations. They're the hardest conversations to have. So talk to me about some of the core problems you're raising, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the solutions or how we approach them.
Sure. So we know that when we look at the data on voter registration and voter turnout, young people are the least likely to do it. A lot of people will sort of like flippantly be like, well, it's because they don't care, because they're apathetic. No social science survey data bears that out. Students and young people want to figure out the world. Like that's what they're doing, is they're trying to learn what the adults are up to and how they're going to become a part of it. And so it's not necessarily they don't care. It's that we don't equip them with the knowledge that allows them to act on things. And this is also true when you just get down to the nuts and bolts of voter registration or voter turnout. Some states still don't have online voter registration. So like in the state of Texas, you have to fill out a form and either bring it to a voter registration center or you have to mail it in. That means a student, a 17, 18-year-old has to figure out like, where are stamps? How do I address an envelope?
Right.
What government building am I going to? And we can't expect them to do that on their own, or I think it's a unfair expectation to put that on them to figure it out. We are in the job of preparing them in the same ways we teach them to drive cars. We talk to them about what safe sex is, what choices they might make around drugs or alcohol. The idea that they're just like going to go into the political world, figure it out themselves doesn't make sense. And the data bears it out that they don't do these things, not because they don't want to, because they don't know how. And they learn. And when you look at like voting charts over time, people who are most likely to turn out are in their 50s and 60s because you essentially pay catch up. You're like, oh, I figured it out. 20s, 30s, I'm paying taxes. I have a family. I'm sending kids to school. Oh, I really need to care about this. Then you like grow and grow and grow. And then it sort of falls off as like life slows down. But we could have a politics that reflects young people if we equipped them with the ability to contribute to those politics with their votes. They're not going to be able to donate money in the same ways that older people are, but they are votes, which at the end of the day is what counts. Like that is what gets you into power or out of power. And so part one is like dispel the notion that kids aren't participating because they don't want to. It's kids aren't participating because we haven't equipped them to do so.
Let me just stop you there for 1 second. What do you say to a young voter in a place like New York who says, assume, let's say you're not a Democrat, right? My vote doesn't really count. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I love this. This happens every presidential, every time. No, every time. You'll have a Republican voter in a blue state or a Democratic voter in a red state.
Right.
And every presidential election, they'll be like, well, it doesn't really matter because the Electoral College means that my vote gets translated in the other side. There's so many things that are wrong with this, but I'll just give you a few. Number one is anytime there's a presidential election, there is always, absolutely always, a House race. Every single time. There's never a presidential election that happens on its own. Every House member is up every time a president is up. So there's always going to be an election where the Electoral College is not what happens.
Right.
Like that's not the decision calculus for that race. That's part one. Part two is it is muscle memory. Like you have to develop the muscle memory for like, where do I go? How do I do this? How much time do I budget? Whatever, what's decision making? Number three is if you want your state to have more power in the future in like primary contests for the presidential elections, you have to have more people of your party turn out. So when you think about, how we used to have the Iowa caucuses where Democrats and Republicans started in Iowa. Now Democrats start in South Carolina, Republicans start in Iowa. But the states sort of jockey for where they're going to be in that presidential decision making based on how many people turn out for those parties. So even if you vote for a candidate who's going to lose your state because of the Electoral College, it is not in vain. There's another election that's going to be on the ballot. You've practiced what it is to vote, and you make your party stronger for the future. So I don't ever see that as like a reasonable thing for people to do.
That's a great answer, What's an example where, you mentioned the Iowa example, where a minority party has turned out enough where somehow that shifted the relevance of that state?
So I won't be able to give you an example of like, this is the calendar change that happened, but within both the parties, they have the ways that they attribute delegates. So you know how you've heard like a super delegate with the Democratic Party or not. The states that have more people relative to other states that are showing support for that party do the internal jockeying within the party apparatuses for who's going to matter more. And so it is machinations that happen every election. It's not like a loud story about it, but it is like the quiet machinery of politics that shifts where things go. Different states will matter if different people of different parties turn out to them.
Well, what's really interesting about your answers, they all are very sort of practical. And what I didn't hear, which I was expecting, was because it's your civic duty too.
Oh, well, that's fine too, yeah.
No, which it is, but it's interesting, which I think goes with what you're saying. There's, in a way you could say it's my civic duty, but it's the same thing. Great, but I don't know how to do it. I've never done it before. I don't know where to go. I'm not registered. So it's almost like maybe that's a given. And maybe people know it's their civic duty, but that's not really the thing we're trying to answer. What we're trying to answer, I think from what I'm hearing, is the practical how do I exercise my civic duty? I want to participate. I get it. I care enough. I agree people do care. But so I think that's interesting that you went with those three answers, which is, I think, right on point.
That's where I am. I also think once you participate in a system, whether it's voting or if you work as like a poll worker, all the headlines that you hear about like malfeasance, they become harder to be outraged by or to believe if you like see it happen in an orderly fashion. Like in New York State, like in many states, you will have a Democrat and a Republican on the poll worker side to sort of like make sure everything's happening in a kosher way. And that's true in most places. So if we think like, ooh, it's nefarious party bosses who are like throwing away ballots or something, that's not really,
I think that's a great point of seeing, the more you see how the sausage is made. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, the behind the scenes, some guy's really trying to do his best. Somebody came out and volunteered, even the community boards, with whatever I like or don't like, people are volunteering for them. Hopefully the better ones are people who are really there to try to help and not be, not obfuscate things, but try to promote things, make things positive. And I think the more people see that human aspect, which again, I think is a transparency thing in government. I don't think people see the humanity
That's right.
enough in government.
That's true. I think we also get a narrative from a very young age that government is bad. Like if you think about children's literature or children's media and entertainment, if they have a government character, it's usually a mayor because that's like the level of something. And those mayors, like think about Simpsons or something.
I was just going to say The Simpsons. That's
the age band, right? But the mayors are usually one of two things. Number one is like a doofus who like just sort of like bumbles through and like by the skin of their teeth, it all comes out. Usually it's not their, doing, but something's okay. Or they're slick and out to do harm to the city that they're meant to protect. So those archetypes are sort of like baked into being raised here. I don't know necessarily why, but I do know that in a lot of children's media, they are primed with those things. They don't come into this like neutral. They come into it with sort of a suspicion that is present even in homes that don't have people who talk about politics, because there's like the cultural zeitgeist has this sort of anti-politics or anti-politician, anti-government undertone.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the lowest lying fruit. It's easier, it's funnier, it's, easier to build, break things down than build things up. So certainly make entertainment. That's a good point. Is there, just now you're saying, is there a fictional story that, like, is there anything you've read recently or seen recently that does have a good message?
I'm sure there are. Yeah. I'm not in a children's media diet right now, really. I'm not
but
getting
growing
a
up,
lot
your
of that.
daughter must have watched movies and stuff. No, is there anything positive?
I'm trying to think about who like the best political figure is. I think there's one actually in Gilmore Girls, but I'm not certain on it. I think
That's
there's
funny.
because she watched that. I never really saw that show. But that's something about me. I don't really.
You're
I
not
don't
a
watch,
big TV person.
Yeah, and I've only seen like
That's
80
why you're
movies in my
smart.
life. No,
You've only seen 80 movies?
80. Like I don't know any movie references that anyone ever makes. I'm like, I don't know this.
That's funny. Okay, another aspect of the book that you bring up. What's another point that you're trying to solve?
Okay, everyone wants their kids to be as successful as possible and as mentally healthy as possible. One thing that we really overlook is this sort of like political understanding, because politics can be scary. Government can be scary. When you're thrown into that world as an adult, you're going to hear headlines that are fearsome. You're going to live a life where like you think that maybe there's other people who are acting on it that are not you. That's not settling. If you understand politics as like a repeated practice that is just people coming together trying to get an outcome that they want, it can actually be really mentally calming. And it commands something of people to say, like, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, whether that's I'm going to volunteer for a campaign, or I'm going to volunteer to work in my community board's office, or I'm going to make sure that I like read this sort of bit on the government every day, whatever. Those sort of like repeated practices of following a government are actually really peaceful versus living in an internet world where it's like Instagram or TikTok that's just like outrage, headline, knee-jerk, get mad.
Yeah.
None of that is good for us. None of it lets us feel efficacious. But if you can teach children that they have agency in a system, which they do, even if that agency is limited or small or the scope is tiny, that agency allows us to see us as not being acted upon, but instead being able to act in a system. That's really positive.
Yeah.
If we think about, you know, the end goal, if a goal is getting a child into college, which it can be for some people, not for everyone, there is no downside ever to having a child doing an internship with a local, state, or federal politician, because every university wants to see those things, whether it be, oh, they have a connection with Cory Booker, that would be great. We'd love to run some internships. Oh, they know someone in the state house, wonderful. We've been trying to do some new zoning. It'd be awesome if we could like have a nice relationship. Or at the very basic level, these are kids who are pro-social, problem solvers, out of their comfort zone, giving back. Those are all things you want in students and alumni. And so it's like only a good badge to have been a part of these things. And sometimes parents will ask me, they'll be like, well, I'm afraid, you know, if they get on with this candidate, then the school admissions officers are going to look at them different. No, they don't have the time to do that. They just want to see, like, are you someone who cares? And indicating a care can be, I'm volunteering for something in the government or in politics. And so I think those are upsides.
Yeah, that's great.
If you want your kid to be as powerful as possible, let them know the system. No one gets worse by knowing more about the system. You don't lose your power. You only gain power.
I forgot who said it. There's a great quote, basically, knowledge conquers fear.
Yeah,
which is really
absolutely.
what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yes.
How do you tackle the issue of, which might be practical for some parents, kids coming home, repeating what they heard because some other kid at school repeated what their parents said, and they don't really know. And I think in your book, you talk about this a lot, like parents just shy away from that, especially in recent elections, the divisiveness and, you know, kids coming home saying whatever, on whatever side you're on. But it's nasty stuff, you know, and it's uninformed and uneducated. How do you address that? How do you begin to tackle that?
So I think about it in two tracks. If it's sort of like this mainline negative or mainline bashing stuff and it's not extremism, you're on track one. Track one, let it go. Let them tell you everything that they're hearing because you want to understand where they're at. And so when I talk to my daughter about politics or when I talk to other parents about talking to their kids about it, the first thing that I always want to ask is, what have you heard about that? And the reason I like what have you heard is it makes you not responsible for like, I'm defending an opinion or I have to show you how smart I am. It's just, what have I heard? It can be so-and-so said it at school. I saw it online. My uncle said this, the TV, whatever. And just having what have you heard is a really good way to start those conversations. If they're saying something that you think veers into extremism or gets into a place where it might be dangerous for themselves or for others, I think part one is you still hear it all, but then you keep coming back to it. And if it becomes something where it's like too much, someone else has to be involved. For most of our kids, that's not where we're at. For most of our kids, they might parrot things or spout things that sound like nasty, but they're not dangerous. We want to let them have those conversations with us. And then if you have a counterpoint or a pushback, you can do that. But you're not necessarily convincing them that you're right and they're wrong. It could be, here's how I see this. Or you can say, do you want to debate about this or you want to just talk about it? Because some kids really thrive on this. Some kids like the debate. They like the back and forth. They like the argument or I got you. And some kids want to talk about it and some kids don't want to do either. But if you can keep it open as like, this is something I'm willing to do with you versus, ugh, that's annoying.
That's
or,
a great point.
Put it off.
It becomes a taboo
keep it open.
thing.
You should keep it open.
So thinking, and I'm respectful of your time, so just want to ask you a couple more things. 10 years, 5 years, you're on this trajectory to bring about, what would you say, what is the awareness or the mission or the vision, you know, you'd like people to have as a result of your work?
I want them to see themselves as a part of it. We are a part of this system, and too often I see people thinking of themselves as spectators. No one is a spectator in politics. everyone is an athlete. You might be a good athlete or a bad athlete, but we're all in it. And as soon as you sort of have that mind shift of like, this is something worth caring about, that is something that you can then transmit to whether it be your own children, your nieces or nephews, your students that you coach, or whatever it is. That sort of civic role modelness is my total end goal, is I want us to opt into this versus thinking politics is stupid or annoying or someone else should do it or nerdy. It's like, no, we're all doing it whether we like it or not. So we might as well do it a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I want to say, how do you measure impact? How do you think about it? And I don't necessarily mean like, I mean, it depends what you say. I hope 1,000 people read my newsletter or 1 million people read my book. Maybe it's different. Some things you have no control over. But let's say, you know, you're looking back. How are you going to be satisfied with the work you've done?
I like that question. My friend asked me a similar thing yesterday. She was like, is the book doing for you what I thought it would do or what you thought it would do? Yeah. For me, everything that I do is snowballing into something else. So every conversation that I get to have with another person is a win. Because for me, people are my favorite things. Like I love people. It's maybe that's one of the reasons why politics is attractive to me, because it's just people making decisions.
That's a good point.
It could be that.
Yeah, how can you be in politics if you don't like people?
You have to like people. And you have to like people that don't like you. You have to just like the variety of people.
But I wonder if that's true for a lot. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
They are people. They have to be. It's because you're going from like here to here and shaking hands and seeing everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not a politician, but I do really like people.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they're the most interesting and sort of the only things I care about. And so for me, the success is like already happened. It's like already there, and it just keeps the flywheel is sort of catching, and so like it keeps sort of happening for me.
Yeah. Again, I meet certain people who I think, however they measure the outward success, I feel like they really enjoy the journey. And absolutely, which is a great lesson. One last question, and all the stuff you do, is there anything you do to ground you, center you, bring you back to whatever that place of balance is? Is there anything that comes to mind that you do when things are getting crazy or before you start a project? You know, you got the question.
It's a great question. Right now I'm in that uncentered place because like school is going to start in September. August is always like I wake up with anxiety and I'm like a little bit like, oh God, it's happening again. And I don't know that I have a solution, but I do know something that I sort of do is anytime I'm feeling like that and it's like silly, is I will go like drink a glass of water. Yeah. That's all I'll do is like I'll go get a glass of water and I'll be like, okay,
I love it. Yeah.
Your systems are working. Like this is going to be fine.
Right.
And so I think from now until September 4, it's going to be like Lindsey and a bunch of glasses of water in the morning. That's how it's going to go.
I love it. I love it. Well, you have my vote. Oh. You have my vote. Also, I have so many interesting social media ideas about sort of like very cool civic things that we could do. We should talk about them.
That's the hardest part for me. Like the one woman showness of this, the like you have to figure out social and connecting. And, that's hard.
I just think there's cool things. I think your message is great. I think it's universal. I think it's inclusive. I think it's not about anybody. I think it's about asking the right question and raising awareness, and I think that it's awesome.
Well, and I'm not interested in raising a partisan. Like, I don't care if you're playing a team blue, team red, team purple. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I just want you to raise a citizen.
I love it. How to raise a citizen and why it's your responsibility to.
Why it's up to you. Why it's up to you to do it.
How to raise a citizen.
Why it's up to you to do it.
Why it's up to you to do it.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so happy we got to talk. It was great.
You're so good at this.
Hey, well, you're good.
You're really good. You're like pew, 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 pew.
You made it very easy. Well, this is awesome. We'll have to stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thanks
great.
a lot.
Yeah, of course.